The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Welcome to our continuing study in the book of Genesis. Let's get to our slides now, if I can. We'll look at chapters 23 through 27, passing on the blessing. I want to start with a quotation from Robert Fulghum. "Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can break my heart." Well, tonight I want to talk about the power of words, and specifically the words of blessing and the acts of blessing that are available to us. Genesis 23, Abraham secures a burial place for Sarah. She's lived 137 years and dies in the town of Kiriath Arba, later known as Hebron. Abraham goes in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And he negotiates with the Hittites, the sons of Heth, for a burial plot, the cave of Machpelah, located on a field of that same name. And Ephraim, the son of Zohar, is willing to sell the property for only 400 shekels of silver, which was exorbitant. And he says, well, what is that between you and me? What's 400 shekels among friends? Well, it's a lot. You may know that the cave of Machpelah is the burial place for Sarah, Abraham, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah, the patriarchs and matriarchs. And in the words of Leon Cass, Abraham provides a permanent holding of a special place where the ancestors may always dwell among the living, a place of memory and filial piety, family devotion. His son will have a secure place to bury him side by side with Sarah, his wife, and Isaac's mother. Isaac, at the time of his father's death, will be directed to reunite his father with his mother and to recognize in their union the wondrous source of his being. He will be compelled to think of himself as standing in their lineage. He will be moved to recall their deeds. He will be encouraged to try to walk thereafter in their ways. And this little is a song called My Little Welsh Home. I can see the quiet churchyard down below where the mountain breezes wander to and fro. And when God my soul shall keep, it is there I want to sleep with those dear old folks that loved me long ago. Chapter 24, God provides a wife for Isaac. Abraham charges his most trusted servant to swear by the Lord, the God of the heavens and God of the earth, not to take a wife for his son from the daughters of the Canaanites, but to go to the country and to his country and to his kindred and take a wife there for Isaac. He cares deeply about the person his son will marry. He seeks a woman of worth, of character, who will bless his family, the next generation, in the ways of God. And the servant says, well, what if she won't go? What if she won't come with me? And Abraham says, the Lord, before whom I walk, will send his angel with you and prosper your way. So the servant swears the oath. He takes choice gifts, 10 camels, and journeys to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor, 450 miles away. He makes the camels kneel by the city well, and then he asks again the God of his master Abraham to grant him success and show steadfast love to his master. And then he asks for a sign. Let the young woman to whom I say, please let down your jar that I may drink. And she will say, drink, and I will also water your camels. Be the one you have chosen for your servant, for Isaac. And before he's finished speaking, Rebekah, the daughter of Milcah and Bethuel, and the granddaughter of Nahor, Abraham's brother, comes with a water jar on her shoulder. She is very fair to look upon. a virgin whom no man had known. And so the servant asks for a drink, and she quickly answers, "Drink, my lord." And then she says, "I will draw water for your camels also, until they have finished drinking." The servant kneels in prayer and says, "Blessed be the Lord, praised be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness toward my master." Rebekah runs home. She tells the family. Her brother comes out, Laban, addresses the servant as one blessed of the Lord, and he gives him the supplies, the food that he needs for his animals and for his men, water for his men. The servant relates his mission to find a wife for Isaac and how Rebekah had treated him with specific kindness and hospitality. It was an unmistakable answer to his prayer. The family agrees. "Behold, Rebekah is before you. Let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken." And the servant bows to the earth in gratitude. The family sends Rebekah off with a blessing. "Our sister, be the mother of thousands of 10,000s, and may your descendants possess the gate of those who hate them." Rebekah takes her nurse, the young women, and departs for Canaan, a long journey. So down in the south of Judah, Isaac is returning from Beer Lahai in the Negev. He lifts up his eyes and he sees the camels approaching. Rebekah lifts her eyes and she sees her future husband, and she veils herself, probably a symbol of her virginity or modesty or her commitment to marry Isaac. She becomes his wife and he loves her. And notice that marriage precedes love. In chapter 25, we have Abraham's descendants and his death. He marries again Keturah, who bears 6 children. He dies at the age of 175, an old man and full of years, a good old age, and he is gathered to his people. And so with the death, Isaac and Ishmael come together to bury their father in the cave of Machpelah with Sarah, his wife. And we have the descendants of Ishmael. He has 12 sons. He lives to be 137, 12 distinct nations. But there is trouble and violence amongst these people. Genesis 25 continues. God answers Isaac's prayer for his wife. She is barren. It's going on 19 years or more. It's another threat to God's promise of progeny. Isaac prays. The Lord answers. And she conceives. But the 2 children within her struggle together. There's rivalry. And so she asks, she goes to the Lord, and the answer is, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you shall be separated. One people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. So this will be the tension between the descendants of Esau and Jacob. The twins are born. The first is red and hairy, and so he is named Esau, or hairy. I think that's the nickname. The second comes grabbing his brother's heel. What's he trying to do? Trip him up, pull him back, and he is called Jacob, which means something like, or sounds something like, heel grabber or supplanter, he who clutches the heel. Isaac is now 60 years old. The couple has waited 20 years. The boys grow to manhood. Esau is a skillful hunter. Jacob is a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Isaac favors Esau for his game, for that tasty food. but Rebekah prefers Jacob, the younger. Well, the next story comes, some time goes by, and Esau has been out hunting and apparently didn't catch or kill anything. He comes back in famished. Jacob may have been waiting for him. He is stewing a stew, red stuff. And Esau says, "Let me eat that red stew. I'm exhausted." So his name is Edom, red. Jacob says, "Not so fast. Sell me your birthright first." And this would be the rights and privileges and rank of the firstborn. Esau says, "I'm about to die. What do I care about any birthright?" And he sells it, the lion's share of the inheritance, to his brother. So Esau despised his birthright. Genesis 26. Famine forces Isaac to move to Gerar, Philistine country. And God reassures him and reaffirms the covenant. Well, the same problem that had happened before with Abraham happens with Isaac. He tells the men of the city that Rebekah is his sister, lest they kill him and take her, because she is beautiful. Time goes by, and Abimelech, the king, looks out his window one day, and there's Isaac caressing Rebekah, his wife. And he goes to Isaac and says, "What have you done to us? One of my men might have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt on us." And so he charges his people not to touch this man or his wife on penalty of death. Well, the Lord blesses Isaac. He becomes wealthy, a prosperous farmer, and he will be forced to leave. The Philistines had broken the oath Abraham had made with Abimelech. They filled up the wells he dug. The Philistines are jealous, and so the king orders him, "Go away. You are too powerful for us." And so he camps in the valley of Gerar, probably a dry riverbed. And still there's turf trouble. When Isaac digs for water, the Philistines dispute his right to the wells. When the third well is dug, they cease and desist. And so Isaac moves to Beersheba. And that night, God appears and again reaffirms the covenant with Isaac. Isaac builds an altar and calls on the name of the Lord. Abimelech makes a visit with his advisor and army commander. He comes to Isaac and says, Isaac says, "What do you want with me? You hate me. You made me leave." And Abimelech says, "We see plainly that the Lord is with you. We want no trouble with you. You are the one blessed of the Lord." And so they do make a treaty, a covenant, and they share a meal. The next day, the Philistines leave, and Isaac's servants report, "We have found water." And so Isaac calls the well Sheba, which sounds like the Hebrew word for oath. And so the city was called Beersheba, well of the oath. Well, chapter 26 concludes. Esau takes 2 Hittite wives who make life bitter. And literally, I think it's a bitterness of spirit for Isaac and Rebekah. They have no regard for the ways of God and his covenant. So our final chapter, and I will spend the most time here, chapter 27, Rebekah and Jacob deceive Isaac, and they take the blessing from Esau, patriarchal blessing. So the first scene, verses 1-4, Isaac seeks to bless his oldest son. He is now blind. He sees his life coming to a close, although he's going to live at least 20 more years. He instructs Esau to go out and hunt and prepare that delicious food he loves, and I will bless you, he says, before I die. Well, Rebekah learns about this, and she tells Jacob to get 2 goats, which she will prepare. He is to take that tasty food into Isaac in order to receive the blessing, a blessing of family headship, prominence, and as well, he will be the bearer of God's promises to the fathers. Jacob is afraid he's going to be found out and bring on himself a curse, not a blessing. And Rebekah says, "You just leave that to me." She prepares the meal. She puts Esau's clothes on Jacob. She wraps the goat skins on Jacob's hands and neck and sends him to Isaac with the food. Well, Jacob doesn't sound like Esau. I made a little typo there. Jacob doesn't sound like Esau. And Isaac says, "Come near that I may feel you, my son." Well, the voice is the voice of Jacob, he says, but the hands are the hands of Esau. "Are you really my son, Esau?" "I am." So, subterfuge here. Isaac eats the meat, he drinks the wine, and then he says, "Come near and kiss me, my son." And he smells. Oh, he smells like the outdoors. Jacob smells like Esau. And he blesses his younger son. And this blessing entails bounty, produce from the ground, a preeminence in his family and the world, and a proper punishment of his enemies and a proper reward for his friends. As soon as Jacob leaves, Esau returns. He prepares the food for his father, and he says, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that thy soul may bless me." And Isaac his father said unto him, "Who art thou?" And he said, "I am thy son, thy firstborn, Esau." And Isaac trembled with an exceedingly great trembling and said, "Who then is he that hath taken game and brought it to me? And I ate everything before thou camest, and have blessed him. And yea, blessed he remains. It can't be revoked or undone." When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceeding great and bitter cry, and said unto his father, "Bless me, me also, O my father." But he said, "Thy brother came with guile, and hath taken away thy blessing." He said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing." And he said, "Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me?" And Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren I have given to him for servants. And with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son?" And Esau said unto his father, "Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Well, apart from his knowledge, Isaac has given the blessing to the son God had chosen, the one that God wanted. And Esau is going to have a rough life. He will live by the sword, and eventually, though, he will throw off his brother's yoke. But Jacob's deceit is going to catch up with him big time. But what we see here, at least, is that God is working on his purposes in spite of what we do, in spite of human duplicity. Well, the story continues. Esau hates his brother for taking the blessing, and he determines to kill him. Rebekah learns that Esau is consoling himself with the thought of revenge after Isaac dies. And so she tells Jacob, "You got to get out of town. So, my son, hearken to my voice and arise. Flee for yourself to Laban, my brother, to Haran, and tarry with him a few days, until your brother's fury turns away and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there." Sounds good, but not realistic. Rebekah urges Jacob to seek safety with her brother in his home, hundreds of miles away. Yet she surely knows that Esau's resentment will last. Jacob's going to have to stay a lot longer than a few days. And in fact, she will never see her son again. Well, I want to offer just a few reflections about blessing, something we don't talk about or think about much in today's culture. These are some thoughts from Brueggemann. The family in Genesis is intent on blessing. It's important. The blessing here combines the power of words and the purpose of God, the enduring power, abiding power of spoken words, and the individual purposes or mission of God. This has to do with vocation or calling. What did God have in mind for Jacob, but not Esau? How does God's will function here? Well, the blessing is intergenerational, one generation to the next. It spans the generations. Parents and children have a stake in each other's future and well-being. These generations, family generations, don't make it on their own, one apart from the other. And how much more important is that then in the passing on of the blessing from one generation to the next in the family of God? Symbolic actions such as laying on of hands or a kiss, the sharing of a meal as we do each week, or meaningful touch, hugs and kisses is what we did every night at our house when the boys were growing up. These rituals and gestures reach beyond the verbal. They're very powerful, and they're part of the blessing. But so is the spoken word, which shapes human life, Brueggemann says. In the modern world, words are used for propaganda and manipulation. Not so with the people of God. He has ordained words for truth and blessing and praise. So language, promises, symbolic acts, gestures matter. Each week, Charlie says, grace and peace to us from God, our Father and the Lord, Jesus Christ. That's a blessing, a blessed reminder and gift. And Brueggemann concludes, nobody wants a life without the special words and gestures that bind that life to a precious past and a promised future. I want to wrap it up with just a few thoughts from Frederick Buechner. He did a commencement address once called The Emerald City, and was based on The Wizard of Oz. So as you know, this story is about Dorothy, who is caught in a cyclone, and she's transported from the home folks in Kansas to the land of Oz. And there she will meet three unique individuals: a scarecrow who needs a brain, cowardly lion who lacks courage, and a tin woodsman who wants a heart. And so they set out for the Emerald City in hopes that the Wizard of Oz will grant their requests. But of course, it turns out that the wizard is not really a wizard at all. Yet, in another way, he is a very great wizard indeed. The scarecrow is, his problem is he doesn't think he has any brains. And, you know, for some people who going through school is a breeze, but for the scarecrow, nothing's a breeze. For some people, calculus is a piece of cake, but for the scarecrow, there's no such thing as a piece of cake. He always thinks that everyone else is smarter than he is, and how much better a job his smart friends can do. Life is hard for anybody, let alone people who think they have straw where their brains ought to be, Buechner says. And he says, it's scary, depressing. And if you wonder why I speak with such feeling, it's because I've been a scarecrow myself. Well, the cowardly lion, he looks at the big world and he's worried. It's not that he doesn't have brains, but does he have the guts to make it. He, you know, Buechner said that he looks back at his grandparents' generations and he wonders how they did it. They kept the wolf from the door. They raised the children, got houses, cars, refrigerators, kept them in repair, held down jobs, paid their taxes. They were able to cope when times were hard. Or the Tin Woodsman. You might think he's kind of a freak, but that's the way he thinks. He doesn't believe that he has a heart like other people. He's not sure how people should feel, human beings. He doesn't make friends easily. He might feel lonely when he's surrounded by people that he's known all his life. He wonders if he'll find anybody that he can love. Well, we go back to the wizard who looks at these three strange creatures, and he can see more, and he can bring out more from them. He sees beneath their fears. He sees things they don't. And so for the scarecrow, he may not have a brain like everybody else's. So what? He has a wonderful brain all his own, as everything he did has shown. And far from being a coward, the lion is brave enough to act bravely, even when he's scared half out of his wits, which is what bravery, true bravery, is all about. And the Tin Man, despite all his fears, has a heart so tender that they have to keep using an oil can on him so he won't be rusted by his own tears. So the wizard sees the three of them, what they can do and be, and helps them to see it as well. He gives the lion a medal. He gives the Tin Man a heart-shaped locket. And he gives the scarecrow a diploma. And so he brings out, he calls out what they are and can be. And I think, again, to conclude, what we say is powerful, and we can use our words to build up and bless and impart grace to those who hear. And as Buechner concludes, may all of you find your way to the Emerald City at last.